Hey guys, this is like my 10th time trying to record this video. This mic I'm not even recording into. I'm having a bad day trying to record a second video. I know I shouldn't expect perfection, but here we go. Alright, so today I want to talk to you about the memory and the hard drive of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Last time I talked to you guys about the SoC, which encompasses the CPU and the GPU. Basically the raw performance of the machine. The SoC is what does the work. That chip is like the brain. It's what does all the calculations and makes the things happen and appear on your screen. It's how all the math and everything behind the scenes is done for your game. Now, that SoC has to get the processes and the game library of assets and what the game is from somewhere. Now, when you buy a console today, on the box it'll say something like 1 terabyte, or it'll say something like 500 gigabytes. That's its storage. Most people know that. They never really advertise memory. Now, the PlayStation 4 had 8 gigs of memory in both the base model and the PS4 Pro. The Xbox One had 8 gigs of DDR3 ESRAM, which is why it was hindered so heavily, and the Xbox Series X had 12 gigs of GDDR5, or GDDR5X, I can't remember, but suffice it to say, the One X gave it better memory and more of it, and also boosted up that SoC to do some really cool things. But basically it was still an Xbox One. So what's that mean for the Xbox Series X and the PS5? Well, the way this works is both of these guys are going to have SSDs, and both of these consoles are going to have 16 gigs of GDDR6 RAM. I thought about going over the specs and the speeds of throughput of these different, the RAM on these different consoles, or the memory. RAM and memory are the same thing. But I just don't feel like explaining all the ins and outs when I think at the end of the day, the 16 gigabytes is going to perform pretty much the same on both. It's not going to make a huge difference. I'm just glad to see that there's parity in the RAM being used, a lot closer than last generation, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, the SSDs are going to be very, very different. There's a lot of confusion about what the SSDs offer. And Xbox and Sony both took very different approaches. Sony took a very, very, very different approach. Their approach is brand new to the industry. They built an SSD that they were trying to have the throughput of memory. So why is that important to understand? Well, think of memory like a parking lot next to a garage, and the garage is a CPU or GPU, or in this case the SoC. And let's say it's like Firestone or something. Okay, they work on your car. They change the oil, they change the tires, they do work, right? Your CPU does the work, okay? But the parking lot holds the cars. It holds the work until the garage needs it. Memory does kind of the same thing. It holds the items that the CPU is going to use to do the processing until the CPU needs it. So in the past, your storage, your operating system was usually on your storage or your hard drive. That 1 terabyte or 500 gigabytes or whatever you see on the box for how much storage the console has. In this case, the RAM is, or the storage, the SSD is so fast on Sony's machine that it can almost be treated as an 825 gigabyte bucket of memory. It's like having the parking garage where you normally park all your cars off site where you aren't going to work on them for a while. It's like having them be your new parking lot. And anytime you need a car, it's right there to get. So Sony wanted the throughput of that SSD to be so fast that developers can pull assets from it without going to loading screens, because that's why we have loading screens now. Or we have those corridors that Mark Cerny talked about, where you squeeze through some like little bitty corridor in like Star Wars or something. And if I can find gameplay, I'll show you. But you squeeze through there, so you then open up to a big area, a big room, and that is what was in memory, was that big room. But it had to pull those assets from the SSD to the memory so the GPU could display them on your screen. So it's like it's like if you were at the car shop, somebody pulls you into the side room and says, yeah, we're bringing your car from the parking lot now. And what they really did was two guys drove off to the parking garage, went up 5 stories, grabbed your car, came back down, pulled it into the parking lot, and then brought you back outside. Well, the hallway was you being brought inside, sat in the waiting room. And that's a loading screen. Well, we don't want loading screens. That's what Mark Cerny said. Well, suffice it to say, an SSD is much, much, much faster than a traditional hard drive. And the current consoles, they use one of these. I just replaced PS4 Pro hard drive. This is a 1TB PS4 Pro 5400 RPM mechanical hard drive, okay? An SSD, if I throw this, I'm gonna break it because it's like a spinning platter. It's like like a little metal record inside of there, okay? Like an old record and needle. But an SSD is solid. That's why it's called an SSD. It's solid state storage. And you can basically throw it and not break it. If you throw it hard enough, you'll break it, clearly. But I mean, like, if you dropped it, just a normal drop, it's usually not gonna break it because there's no moving parts. It's solid. But also, you can read and write from it much, much faster. And that's what's really important here to developers, is being able to get those read and write speeds. Now, Xbox and PS5 are both going to be able to pull storage from the hard drives very, very quickly. Or, excuse me, the SSDs very, very quickly. The PS5 is just going to be faster. And the idea is that you can load static assets much faster, so you don't have to have 50 or 60 copies of the same asset in different areas and blocks of memory or blocks of storage that you're going to load into memory and then load onto the screen. Instead, you can just have that asset once, and anytime you need it, load it to memory and into the screen. I saw one person say something to the effect of, loading times are not going to be less than 1 second, like Mark Cerny said, because it's going to take at least a couple seconds to saturate the memory before it goes to CPU. That's the mistake that people are making. They're thinking about this traditionally. Traditionally, you would bring the car from the parking garage to the parking lot and then to the CPU. That's not going to happen anymore, or it doesn't have to happen anymore. Now, the developers can just bring the car straight to the garage and start doing the work on it, and do it as fast as almost as fast as if they were pulling it from the parking lot. I hope that makes sense. So the SSDs are going to be really, really fast, and not everything is going to have to be put in memory first. But now we have more memory to store things in, if we are going to do it that way, and we have the faster SSD to load assets from. So that's really cool. Okay, I want to talk about the one thing that I think people aren't understanding yet. There's going to be the ability to have expandable storage, because let's face it, 825 gigabytes on Sony's machine is not a lot. A terabyte on Xbox's machine is not a lot. When Call of Duty is like 100 gigs, that's a tenth of your storage, and that's more than a tenth on PS5. That's insane, okay? That's just kind of dumb. So you're going to want to put more games on there. Well, the problem with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, this goes for both of them, is if you want Series X games or PS5 games to run, they have to be installed on the internal SSD, or in the case of Xbox, they have memory card SSDs that they partner with Seagate on. I have no idea how expensive those are going to be, but they're proprietary and they're from Seagate, and Seagate makes expensive storage in my opinion, so I can't imagine those being cheap to have proprietary expandable storage. PS5 has gone the approach of having a bay that you can put in your own PCI Gen 4 SSD. There's not a lot of those available yet, and Sony's going to have to go through and make sure that they're compatible. So that's a whole different thing. There's going to be certain ones that you can or cannot buy. That's going to be hard to do. So I think they're going to have to partner at some point to have a verified SSD sit in the gaming aisle, and then the more knowledgeable people can shop around and find one that works for them. But I swapped out a hard drive and an SSD and a PS4 Pro last night and installed the operating system for PS4 in like less than 30 minutes. So Sony makes that really easy for expandable storage. You can still use a USB expandable hard drive, but it will not be able to store Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 games. It will only be able to store backwards compatible games. Now, backwards compatible is another topic. I want to get to it. I don't know if I will soon, but my next video is probably going to be something more fun. I'm tired of talking tech, but I said this would be my next video, so here it is. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please like the video. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you can. I know I have like 11 subscribers as of recording my second video here, but I want to grow. I want to get more people watching my videos. I want to talk about video games. I love games. So if you love games, please subscribe to my channel. If you love consoles and PC gaming, subscribe to my channel. I will have tons of content. I will also be streaming as soon as I get my stream up and going again. And I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.